The death of an American activist in the West Bank has sparked international outrage and put a spotlight on the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Aysenur Ezgi Agi, a recent graduate of the University of Washington, was killed during a protest in the occupied territory. The incident has drawn sharp criticism from human rights groups and raised questions about the use of force by Israeli authorities. The U.S. government, while maintaining its strong alliance with Israel, has expressed concern over the incident and called for a thorough investigation. Agi's death comes at a time of heightened tensions in the region, with a surge in violence between Israelis and Palestinians. The incident has also fueled debate about the role of the United States in the conflict, with some calling for a more even-handed approach from Washington. This tragedy underscores the human cost of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. As we delve into the details of this incident and its broader implications, it is crucial to remember the life that was lost and the countless others affected by this decades-long conflict. The Israeli Defense Forces claim that Agi was killed accidentally during a riot in which Palestinians threw rocks and Molotov cocktails at soldiers. The IDF maintains that soldiers used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse the crowd and that Agi was caught in the crossfire. However, eyewitnesses and human rights groups dispute this account, alleging that Israeli forces used excessive force and that Agi was deliberately targeted. The Israeli government has promised a full investigation into the incident, but skepticism remains high among Palestinians and international observers. Previous investigations into similar incidents have often resulted in little or no accountability for Israeli soldiers. The conflicting narratives surrounding Agi's death highlight the deep mistrust and lack of accountability that plague the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has expressed deep concern over Agi's death and called for a thorough and transparent investigation. While the U.S. government has traditionally been a staunch ally of Israel, Blinken's remarks signal a growing unease with Israel's use of force against Palestinian civilians. Blinken has also urged Israel to take steps to prevent future tragedies, emphasizing the need for de-escalation and dialogue. However, it remains to be seen whether these calls for restraint will translate into concrete action from the Israeli government. The U.S. response to Agi's death will be closely watched by the international community. The incident has put pressure on the Biden administration to take a more assertive stance on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and to hold Israel accountable for its actions. Aysenur Ezgi Agi was a passionate advocate for social justice who dedicated her life to fighting for human rights. After graduating with honors from the University of Washington, she traveled to the West Bank to volunteer with the International Solidarity Movement, a Palestinian-led organization that advocates for Palestinian rights through nonviolent resistance. Eigi's friends and family describe her as a compassionate and courageous young woman who deeply believed in the power of peaceful protest. They are demanding justice for her death and calling for an end to the violence and oppression faced by Palestinians. Igi's story is a stark reminder of the human cost of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the urgent need for a just and lasting peace. Her legacy will continue to inspire others to fight for a world where all people are treated with dignity and respect. Igi's death is part of a disturbing trend of rising violence in the West Bank. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, over 100 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces in the occupied territory since the beginning of the year. This includes unarmed protesters, journalists, and even children. Human rights groups have accused Israel of using excessive force and of failing to distinguish between civilians and combatants. They argue that the Israeli government's policies of settlement expansion and military occupation are the root causes of the violence. The escalating violence in the West Bank is deeply concerning and threatens to further destabilize the region. The international community must take urgent action to address the root causes of the conflict and to hold both sides accountable for violations of international law. The death of Aysenur Ezgi Agi has put a strain on the historically close relationship between the United States and Israel. While the Biden administration has reaffirmed its commitment to Israel's security, it has also expressed growing concern over Israel's treatment of Palestinians. This tension is likely to increase as pressure mounts on the Biden administration to take a more even-handed approach to the conflict. The U.S. government provides billions of dollars in military aid to Israel each year, and some lawmakers are now calling for this aid to be conditional on Israel's respect for human rights. The U.S.-Israel relationship is at a crossroads. The Biden administration must decide whether it will continue to provide unconditional support to Israel, or whether it will prioritize human rights and the pursuit of a just and lasting peace. Palestinians view the death of Aysenur Ezgi as another example of the systemic violence and discrimination they face under Israeli occupation. They argue that the incident highlights the impunity with which Israeli forces operate in the occupied territories and the urgent need for international intervention. Palestinian leaders have called for an independent investigation into Agi's death and for the perpetrators to be held accountable. They have also renewed their calls for an end to the Israeli occupation and the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. The Palestinian perspective is often overlooked in discussions about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It is essential to listen to the voices of Palestinians and to understand their experiences in order to find a just and lasting solution. The death of Aysenur Ezgi is a tragic reminder of the human cost of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. However, the prospects for peace remain bleak. The two-state solution, once considered the most viable option for peace, is increasingly seen as unattainable. The Israeli government continues to expand settlements in the West Bank, and the Palestinian leadership remains divided. Finding a way forward will require political will, compromise from both sides, and a renewed commitment from the international community to support a just and lasting peace. The death of Aysenur Ezgi is a call for justice, not only for her, but for all victims of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It is a reminder that the status quo is unacceptable and that we must demand better from our leaders. We must hold all parties accountable for their actions and work tirelessly for a future where Israelis and Palestinians can live together in peace and security. The time for words is over. It is time for action. Let us honor Aysenur's memory by working together to create a world where such tragedies are never repeated.